Welcome back to the Hawk's Nest. You see me, I got my glasses on, so I'm feeling studious today. So, anyways, a little bit of background. Of course, you gotta know that during the month of Ramadan, I had people fasting with me and everything like that, and then, we interview them and get their experiences of, how they fasted and how it changed them and why they did it. And this one is gonna be very, very special. This is a guy that him and I went to middle school together, and my fondest memories of him and I in our relationship was honestly just slap boxing. And to actually sit down and actually have an intellectual conversation with this man after almost 10 years, was something special that I cannot even put into words. And you will see how even after 10 years, we have not spoken for 10 years, and we got right back into, conversing and everything like that. It's almost like we never even fell off before. It's almost like this brother has been in my life for 10 years, even after middle school. So I'm not gonna go on for too long. I'm looking for you guys watching this interview. And, like I always say, enjoy the show.
My journey has brought me to an understanding of the divine forces with which we have all been bestowed. It was in this search that I came upon a revelation, which has called me to guide millions of people towards their righteous destiny.
It.
My guy Frantz,
What's
bro,
up, Miss?
it's
How are you?
crazy. I'm doing good, bro. 10 years later, finally speaking again, bro. But I gotta say, bro, before we even get started, I just want to hear a little about you, a little introduction, and you know.
All right, my name is Frantz. I'm a Hunter College student, grad student. You know, I aspire, as of right now, my goal is to practice and improve on my basic humanitarian skills. Where it's, if it was a spectrum where narcissism is a 0 and altruism is a 100, I'm like leaning towards altruism. And for those who don't know, altruism is basically a lifestyle or a concept of being extremely selfless, right? And I think I haven't done much research, and I want to, but Ramadan kind of not forces us, but it incentivizes us to personify altruism, where initially it may be difficult because it's kind of going against the grain, but after the 30 days, instinctively we become more selfless, right? And we let go of monetary things and things that we tend to overvalue, which can cause discourse and conflict. And we relinquish those things and give it to those in need. I noticed when I was going to school, there was a homeless individual, right? Bro, I was hungry that day, and I only had $5 in my pocket. But I knew that if I went home, there would be food. Even though I didn't want the food at home, I still had the means to eat. Now, I didn't know what he was going to do with the money. I just hoped he was going to do something productive. But more likely than not, he probably wasn't going to make more than $5 that day. I decided to relinquish that and give it to him in hopes that it betters him, then it will better me, right? Again, I don't know what he did with it, but it's not fair to place that narrative on him that because he's homeless, he's going to do something bad with the cash provided to him, right? And after adopting that mindset, it's became instinctual for me to just give whatever I have, whether it's clothing, food, things that I don't necessarily need in the moment or in the future. No, not need, but if they're not really essential, then I don't have an issue giving them away, which is a direct contrast with my character because growing up, I was very selfish because I didn't receive what I wanted relative to my peers. My peers had the nicest shoes. I had one pair of shoes for the entire year. And I think that mindset and that experience really grounded me and made me humble and realize how valuable things are and how we take things for granted. Now, I'm comfortable with the amount of clothes that I have, but I know somebody else can always be more comfortable because I've been there. Because I've been there, I'm able to empathize with others. Hold on, I'm doing the interview. All right, get home safe. Yes, I'm able to empathize with them and share some grace. But yeah, that's my story thus far. And guess what? It's still being written. The story never ends.
Hey, yo,
So,
that was amazing, bro. And you
mhm.
so many points. And before I even get started into fasting and everything like that, first I got to ask you, because as I said before, you and I went to middle school together. And I
Mhm.
want to ask you this first: is when did you start this mode of enlightenment and this search of enlightenment and wisdom? How old are you? Do you remember that moment or?
Honestly, it's pretty recent. And I believe everything does happen for a reason. About a month and a half ago, no, yeah, I'm on no, 2 months actually ago. 2 months ago, prior to you posting the link to the group chat, my partner at that time, she's also Muslim. And I'm like, you know what? I want to um, participate in Ramadan. And unfortunately, we split apart. I think a week or two before Ramadan started, and I didn't know if I was going to continue with my word. But I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. I joined the group chat and I started. And I think because I was out of that situation, I had the emotional bandwidth to apply myself in other situations, right? Whether it's at work or at school, I was much more present because I wasn't using so much energy for my relationship. I was able to share my energy with others, and energy is transferable. I'm sure, and not to badmouth McDonald's, but there are people who work in fast food who, for the most part, always give you an attitude because one, they don't like what they're doing, but if their environment perpetuates that attitude and that narrative that you know what, it's okay to behave this way, then that's the energy they're going to give off because that's what they're receiving and that's what's being normalized, right? In my environment now, I'm like, you know what? I want to be a difference maker. I want to put smiles on people's face, regardless of whether they disrespect me or not. I'm not going to match negative energy because that's going to leave me in a state of imbalance at all times. Right. So after leaving my relationship and a week afterwards, everything just clicked for me. I'm like, yo, when you start focusing on yourself and letting go of irrelevant things, not to say that she was, but letting go of irrelevant means and factors, your ceiling just keeps on growing. So to answer your question, I began this journey like for real, about 2 months ago, right? Which is why I'm still learning. And if there are those who can provide advice or anything to me, I'm always willing to listen because I believe in order to learn, you have to remove your preconceived notions and your biases about things that you already know, right? Which is why some of us struggle in school. If you're taking a math class, for example, and you already know the subject, you may tend not to really focus as much because you already know it. But you can always learn more. So in my case, I may know something already, and you're telling me about it again. I'm going to act as if it's my first time hearing it to approach it on a fresher basis. That way I can absorb more information, right? So that's where I'm at right now. And as of right now, I am a student universally. No pun intended by that, too. Yes.
Very well said, brother. And I have to ask you this, if you don't want me asking, of course. What about you mentioned your ex-girlfriend and her being Muslim, and but what about her and her practice in Islam?
Mm-hmm.
Attracted you towards Islam and wanted to practice Ramadan.
She herself wants to be more consistent with her religion and culture, and I always supported that because I was raised in a fashion where everyone is accepted. As long as you're not harming anybody, you will be accepted. And she was my first partner who was Muslim and practiced Ramadan. And experiencing it for the first time, it was a little different. But I think because I went to a predominantly Muslim middle school with you, it wasn't anything new. I'm like, okay, I've seen this before. Maybe not on a personal level, but I'm familiar with the concept. And because of that, it intrigued me because I was never coerced to follow religion. And now experiencing that on her end, I have the ability and the desire to learn more, right? I want to learn more about Islam, Judaism, Christianity. I don't want to follow a religion blindly. And this is my first step into that journey of just learning more. Right. But as right now, like me and her, we are talking about it again. Like we're talking on good terms. But in order to grow sometimes, you have to grow apart. And that's what we both needed. Space apart to grow and mature on ourselves. And if God sees it fit for us to come back in the future, then so be it. But self-growth and self-work is a very underrated concept that we must all work on. And it's not talked about enough.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And since starting this journey and fasting for this month of Ramadan, have you found what you were looking for in any way?
I think we get confused with what we're looking for. And by that I mean, let's say I'm in a park. Let's say there's a treasure hunt, right? And there's $500,000 in a park, and I know where it's located. I think if I'm solely focused on finding that 500,000, I ignore or I'm oblivious to the journey of getting to that $500,000. Right? As right now, I'm not looking for anything. I'm just enjoying the journey because the journey may provide what I'm looking for. Right? If you're focused on one thing, it's like a horse in a race. It's very tunnel vision. But if you're enjoying the journey, you're able to observe and take in the entire atmosphere around you, right? So as right now, I'm not looking for anything, but I am gaining everything, if that makes sense, right? It's like a flower. A flower that doesn't take sunlight from one direction. If it does, it's very, it looks obscure. But when a flower is in a free environment, it blossoms in all directions. And that's what I'm doing right now. Also, with Ramadan, one thing I'm really grateful for is you have to restrain yourself sexually, right? And that's a issue that, because I work in the gym, a lot of males and females alike, but mainly males struggle with sexual discipline, which is why we may see some early pregnancies and whatnot. Sexual energy, it's so powerful where we sometimes only think it can be utilized in one aspect, which is sex, but it can be transferred and translated into several other aspects, whether it's work, personal, business, the gym, reading. It's all energy that can be converted into other forms, right? And Ramadan, it has positioned me in a manner where to think differently about it. It's like, you know what? You have this energy, this pent-up energy. Try using it in a different way. And I've noticed immense growth where, I'll be honest with you, it's a lot of growth in my gym. Super fire. As a man, I recognize that, right? I may look, but I never stare because there's a chance that might cause discomfort to them. And I'm also at a point where meaningless sex it's not enough for me. In order for me to be fully stimulated, I need something beneath the surface level. Like, you may look good in all that, but that's very much you can be expended. Like, you're still expendable if you look great, because there are other people who look great. But how many people can hold a conversation, provide knowledge, share your wisdom? Not many people can do that, right? Very, very few. And I think Ramadan has really helped me focusing on that. Not too much, because there are other aspects, but I noticed that more, that some people are shallow. And not to judge them, but because they're shallow, that's not a lake that I want to put my foot in. Because not everybody is deserving of that energy. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. Come on, bro. I got knowledge for you, bro. Yeah.
Hey, yo, you basically answered my questions for me, bro. I love this. I
Mhm.
freaking love it, bro. And I think like when it comes to, of course, you mentioned already, right? When it
Mhm.
comes to Ramadan for me, and me being having done it for a very long time, and then now actually noticing the difference in it, right? At 24 years old, I think, like you said, right, in terms of discipline, it's especially as a man, it's a lot harder. For a man, I think for women, I think it's a little bit more the morality and discipline is already embedded in them in a sense. Um, so for you now on this journey, how are you going to translate this back into your life in terms of after you're done?
Hmm. I don't think Ramadan is something that you start and finish, right? It's I really see it as working out. If you work out for a month and you stop working out for a week, the results are still there. You stop working out for a year, the results may not be there, but when you pick up a weight, you know what it should feel like.
Mm,
So I think it really creates second nature thinking where you're more intuitive and in tune with things that you should do and things that you shouldn't do, right? If your goal for Ramadan is just to make it start to end, then I don't think those effects will linger. But if your goal is to learn and taking the experience day by day, those effects will definitely linger and it will create that mind to muscle connection, for the lack of better words. To your point, when this period is finished, obviously I will not be fasting for like the same amount of hours right now, but I will fast occasionally. But I will always try my best to refrain from cursing because I've realized that some people, when asked why do they curse, they tell me that that's just how they communicate, which
mm,
is fair. You have the right to speak however you want, but have you tried not cursing for a month, for a
mm.
week, for a day? It's hard, and when faced with adversity and things that can make you uncomfortable, there's signals and signs that you need to grow in that department.
Yes.
I've set up about 3 times in Ramadan where I cursed, where I was with my coworker and he said, the N word is not a curse. And I said, the N word is a curse. But I said the N word itself. I'm like, oh, I caught myself.
Mhm.
But that's because I'm aware of it.
Exactly.
And I think Ramadan makes you more aware of what you're doing. You're not just idly living, you're actually existing.
Mm,
No, you're not existing, you're living. Sorry. Yeah. Right. And there was a quote in the recent John Wick movie. It said, how a man does anything is how a man will do everything.
mm.
If you're at a job and they ask you to like mop or sweep, right? And you put minimal effort, at some point that effort will translate to something that you find important to you. Like, you know what, it's not worth it. Let me just put in a little effort. No. If you're going to do something, do it right. And I've learned that through Ramadan. I'm like, you know what? There are times where I want to end my fast early. But how is that helping me?
Mm.
It's not. It's not helping me. So it really solidifies the foundation of discipline that we all have ingrained and embedded in us.
Mm.
That's what I think Ramadan does. It challenges your discipline. And if you're up for the challenge and you approach it the right way, well, I don't think there's one right way. But if you approach it with integrity, then you will definitely see results. Maybe not in 1 month or 2 months, but the results will be there for sure. Mm-hmm.
Definitely, bro. Definitely. I think for us as people, especially living here in the States, and I always bring this up all the time, we've somewhat lost our idea of what is right and what is wrong, right? If it doesn't hurt anybody, then I can do whatever I want to do, right? And not realizing that you just said it, right? In terms of, you doing something lackadaisy and not realizing until later. I think the same things go along the lines of you cursing, right? It becoming a habit, right? And you mentioned another thing too is, looking at women. course you're gonna look as a man, but not staring, right? But these things can become habits to the point where like you might end up slipping up and later on at the wrong time, the wrong time. So I think when it comes to this journey right here, and bro, everything you're saying is just like you're bringing it so perfectly. And I think for Islam, I know you're trying to learn about it. For Islam, for me is, before it was just like, oh well, yeah, I am Muslim, right? But the thing about being a Muslim is the word Muslim in Arabic actually defines as submitting your will to God, or person who submits their will to God, right?
Mhm.
These things that I've learned in this month of Ramadan is, being able to actually, like you said, be conscious of what you're doing. And when you do it, say like, okay, I did what I did, it was wrong, but I can actually work on those things. Now, one thing I want to ask you is, with this fast, and you said that you really started this journey 2 months ago.
Mhm.
What are some things that you have actually worked on in the past 2 months, and have you seen any improvements?
The main thing, well, social media is very much a double-edged sword, right?
Mm.
Prior to Ramadan starting, I was off social media for 3 weeks because I perceived it as this, right? Some people, when they say, you know what, when the new year starts, I'm going to start working out, right?
Mm.
But it's a learning curve. So I think if your goal is to work out for the new year, start a month or two in advance, such that when it is the new year, you already know what you're doing. Some of you guys, and I understand we're struggling, but like, you know what? Oh, I was on social media X, Y, and Z, because the preparation wasn't done before the race. Well,
Mm.
not the race, the marathon. It's not a race, the marathon, right? And I prepared before the marathon started, which is why it wasn't a difficult concept for me to do. However, I didn't know that you guys perceive YouTube Shorts as social media, and we agreed on it as a group. I'm like, fair. So I wasn't on YouTube Shorts anymore, but that was easier for me to do because I prepared weeks in advance.
Mhm.
And Ramadan has taught me to always prepare. Like, there's a quote, I forgot the quote, but always try best to stay prepared, right? And yeah.
Dope, bro. That's really dope. And I want to ask you this too. I remember I put in the group chat, I was like, let's see if we can break out music. Have you done that?
Yes, yeah, I have broken out music. I have. That part was foreign to me,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, dang, break out music. But I have. But I work in the gym, and there's music playing all the time, right? And I caught myself where after the fast, I'll sometimes listen to music. I'm like, wait, does that count? Does that count? Always trying to find loopholes, and that's something I want to break from my character. Where I think internally we always know that something is right or wrong because we get that gut feeling or that guilt.
Mm.
And I think because I got that early, I knew it was wrong, but I still kept doing it, like listening to music after I fasted, right? I'm like, oh, I'm not fasting anymore, so I should do it, right? But I wasn't cursing after I fasted. I wasn't, having sex after I fasted. So if those things are excluded, why should I listen to music? So
Mm.
that's one thing that I want to work on for next Ramadan, for sure, for sure. Because I didn't prepare for that. I did not prepare for that.
I think music is one of the hardest things because like it's almost part of your daily life. I'm gonna go to I'm getting in the shower, listen to music. I get in the car, listen to music. I'm on the train, listen to music. Everything that you do, listen to music. Um,
Yeah,
so have you stopped at like have you tried it at all for like a day, or how'd you do it during this month?
I tried it. I tried it for 3 days, and I
Mhm.
think the withdrawals got to me.
Mhm.
But because I know I felt withdrawals, it's something that I know that I'm aware that I should work on, and
Definitely,
I do plan to work. Mm-hmm.
definitely. We coming down to like, you have a great conversation.
Hold on.
Coming up to like 7 minutes, bro. I wish we could have it a little longer because there's so much to talk about. Um, so
Yeah.
So for you now, and honestly, bro, this is amazing because who would have thought that 10 years later you end up having a conversation like this coming from us being in middle school and having the craziest conversation you can ever think of. Um, what is one thing that, not even one thing, what is something that for you as a person, as a man, you would want people to understand not only about you, but about life and what you've learned so far?
Great question. I think as humans, we are capable we are much more capable. We're capable of much more than we think we are. But the thing about that, it's hard. And going back to the quote that I mentioned, how you do anything is how you do everything. If you're faced with adversity and you're used to it, it's like I said, it's all habitual. Going back to the cursing thing. If you're used to shying away from adversity or ignoring it in general, your growth will become stunted, right? Fortunately, this is a reversible change. Stunted growth in this analogy can be reversed, but it requires what a lot of us fear most: hard work. And Ramadan has forced us to work hard, not physically, but to control our urges. And I believe that's harder than physical work.
Yes.
Because if you're running and you're tired, your mind gives up before your body does. Your mind gives up miles before your body, because your body is capable of going much further than we think. But our mind tells us, you know what? I'm tired. Let's stop. Right? The mind is like the CEO of the company. The workers are capable of going, but the CEO tells us whether to stop or go. So I think if we're capable of strengthening our mind, man, it's limitless as to what we can accomplish. And it's been shown within the participants of the fast. I'm sure they've grown much more than they can realize or recognize, but their peers and people around them definitely notice. Because when working out, unless you have a mirror, you will not notice your growth, but others will, whether physical or mental. And I think that Ramadan challenges us mentally to an extent that we never thought possible. We never thought about how much we consume food or how much we drink water. And honestly, 12 and a half hours or 11 and a half hours is not a lot. But when you agree that you're not going to do it, it's like, dang, now you're counting hours, because it's going against what you're used to, right? But it's all for the greater good, because if you can do that for 12 hours, imagine what else you can do for 12 hours or 13 or 14. There was a time where I fasted for an entire day, no water, no food. When I tell you I was sick, no, not for Ramadan, like prior to Ramadan.
Okay.
Right? But that was to test my mental fortitude. Now, it didn't go the best because I had like a really bad stomach ache, but I told myself that I'm going to do this. Regardless of how my body reacts, this will get done. And because my mind was stronger than my body that day, I got it. I accomplished it. Granted, I suffered the consequences later because I wasn't used to it, but I'm super glad that I got that done, because it pushed the boundary and the threshold as to what I can do. It's super easy to say I can't, but it's hard to say that I'll try, let alone try my best. And that's what Ramadan teaches you. Always try your best, and that you can do it.
Hey, bro, that's a perfect way to put it. And I think, like, I remember said this, I will always say this all the time, is I think, you go to somebody and be like, how do you improve your body? Or I go to the gym. Or how do you improve your mind? Or I read a book. And you ask somebody, how do you, improve your spirituality and your spirit and keep your spirit healthy? People will get stumped. I think, like, during this month of Ramadan, it's one of those things where I think fasting lines up the mind, body, and soul into one, because it not only works out your mind and body, but it also brings your soul into one as well. So bro, that is so true. Do you feel like the 24-hour fast made this fast even easier? Like you were like even like
It prepared me, but not enough. Not enough. When it for 30 days straight, that's tough. That's tough. And the thing about me, when I fasted prior to 24 hours, I'll do intermittent fasting, right? But I'll drink water. Not drinking water is insane. It wasn't the same concept for me to process. But working out while fasting is not the easiest thing to do, but it's still possible. Because I think in the chat you mentioned that you were boxing while you were fasting. And there are players right now playing basketball on a professional level that are fasting. And that's all because they told their mind, they told their body that this will get done.
yes.
Right? And once you made that man, I got a brain fart right now. What? Brain fart, my fault. Once you made the decision that you will do something and you're sincere about it, no one can stop you. A strong why can overcome anyhow. Anyhow. I promise you that. If you have a really strong why, anyhow is possible.
I like that, bro.
Why do you want to graduate? Let's say I want to graduate to bring peace to my country, right? Like for example, right? That's a really strong why. I promise you, if you're faced with the hardest courses in the world, that why will always overcome those hows.
Always.
Because you really want it. You really want it. Now, some people, they don't want it because they have a weak why, but that's okay. We have to start somewhere. But always a strong one.
Yo, thank you for watching. Yes, I'm in the closet. I need some more quiet. Anyways, please like, please subscribe. I got more stuff coming, more workouts, more motivation, and more intellect. See you guys next time. Assalamu alaikum.